Welcome to the Magic and Miracles podcast, where we share and explore profound stories that bring science and spiritual together in the most illuminating and unexpected ways. A miracle is defined as something outside the realm of what you believe is possible for you. These stories will lift and enlighten, showing you that anything is possible. I am your host, Nicole Majik. Join me as we dive into real-life extraordinary stories that will captivate your curiosity, shift your mindset, and bring healing to your soul. From real-life angels to the strange and paranormal, get ready to embark on a new, inspiring journey with each episode that prove magic and miracles happen every day. All right. Hello and welcome, everyone. I have a very, very special guest here today. She has an extensive and very impressive background and just culmination of experiences. So we're going to welcome today Dr. Kimberly McGeorge. She is an internationally renowned naturopathic doctor, energy healer, remote viewer, paranormal expert, and consciousness teacher. Her extensive client list includes some of the world's most talented healers, and for the past 25 years, she has worked on thousands of people around the world. Dr. Kimberly was born with the ability to remote view, see people's auras, and was highly intuitive. And while she was still in college, she helped police on many occasions. That is so super awesome, and I love hearing about that. She was finding that she had a natural affinity with herbs. She started working as an herbalist, went on to create and distribute her own line of herbal organic products internationally. And during this time, her personal practice expanded to multiple clinics throughout Columbus. She was driven by her inner knowing that her healing work could be made much quicker, more affordable, and amplified exponentially using technology. Dr. Kimberly consulted with an esteemed neurosurgeon and realized that the healing frequencies in naturopathy could be applied to all areas in her clients' lives. Her latest groundbreaking program, Frequency Master, teaches how to master frequencies in your own life and trains other healers how to use their own unique, successful methods. So welcome, Dr. Kimberly. It's so nice to have you here. We've got a lot of synchronicity and parallels in our lives, so I am very excited to share stories and then kind of bring that out to everybody. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I'm excited too.
Yeah, so because we've got these parallel experiences, I'd love to discuss a few of them and share our unique stories, and then kind of amplify that out to what can be useful of those experience of ours and to the people that are out there, because, you know, not everybody has had the ability to see auras, see energy, remote view, astral project, and do all these things from a very young age, like both of us have, as well as, you know, growing up in an environment that we may not have felt fully supported because it was, you know, an environment that taught like fear of these things. Right?
Love that. Yeah. Fear and judgment, you know, and self-judgment. It's really hard. I don't know how you felt, but it was really hard to, when you're always the black sheep, you're always the bad one, you're always the satanic one, you know, growing up in a Christian home. It's really hard to come out of that and hold your power in, you know, a really strong way so that you can actually begin to use your abilities to help other people.
Absolutely. There's a lot of shame, right? There was a lot of shaming and demonization. Yeah, absolutely. I was the demon seed, which felt very, it felt very weird, because being that kid, I felt like, well, how come you can have visions, but I can't? How come it's of God with you, but it has to be of the devil with me? Why do I, because I know things, it's not right, but you just know things and it's okay because it was a message from God. I never really understood that. So I think because I didn't understand it, it almost kept me in the space of holding my ground, because how could I be so bad that the same thing that is happening to other people that I'm connected to, why is it only bad for me?
kind of on a similar thought, you talked about, people attempting exorcism on you for your abilities. And that also happened to me repeatedly throughout my life, from family members. But that's actually what kind of turned the corner for me, because I'm like, if you guys exercise me and there's no demons in me, right? Then why do I still have these abilities? So I then kind of switched it to, even though I'm not religious now, at the time I kind of said, well, they must be from God and you guys must be wrong, which was more helpful to start walking in them. Because I'm just like, well, you guys, threw your worst at me and nothing changed. So hello, I mean, these must be real abilities, not another being's abilities coming through me.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that. And that's good that you had that experience. I want to kind of like go to your ability to see auras, and you've seen them all your life too. And that was kind of the first experience I had of that shift of, oh, not everybody sees what I see, because
Uh-huh.
this happened in church with me, where
Oh, wow.
the priests aura changed. It was always purple to me, but it was green this day.
Oh,
And
wow.
I had asked my mom why that is, and she was shocked. So I wanted to know, when did you first realize that you had this gift and others didn't? Or was that the first thing? Was it something else?
I remember when I was like 3 or 4, and my mom, and it's funny, I remember where I was in the house. I was sitting on the floor, and my mom walked up to me and she said, I'm going to make like a quilt for your room and curtains for your room. And what's your favorite color? Well, I'm sorry. When you're me and you, that's like not top priority on my mind at 3 or 4 to pick a favorite color. It's just not, because I'm not like 3D. I'm like this adult in this 3 or 4 year old body. So I just wasn't. So I'm like, shoot, I have to answer and I have no idea. So I looked at my mom and she had this yellow orange aura around her. So this was a mistake I regretted for many years. So I said either yellow or orange. So then I got like a yellow room with a yellow and orange quilt, but I picked it from my mom's aura, you know? And I guess I never realized, the only thing I knew is this deep intuition. I didn't exactly know how everybody was so different, but in my family, I would remember like standing on one side of the room and the three of them would be on the other side of the room. And I literally felt like that. I felt like I am totally different than you. Like one of these things does not belong here. Like I just, like it was a frequency energy thing. It was like, why am I here? Who are you people? I mean, it was bad for me. Like just a lot of disassociation with what is this place that I'm in? Like, what is Earth? And why am I in this psycho family? And who am I? And how do I fit in here? And what am I supposed to do? And how am I supposed to not like at 3, I basically wanted to kill myself out of boredom. And I'm
Yeah.
being totally honest. Like, you guys think I'm being flippant. I'm not. Like, if I knew how to kill myself at 3, we wouldn't be having this conversation, because I was done at 3. I mean, when you have an adult mind in a child body and you have to go to doctor's appointments in a half-hour car ride, and you have to, with like 3D people, you just want to shoot yourself.
Sometimes I feel like that hanging out there in the real world.
Yeah, sometimes I still feel like that. No offense, anyone, but yeah.
Well, it's, and what I mean by that, and why it's kind of funny, is that there's such a vast majority of people, and statistically I guess it's like 85% of the people just don't even have any level of awakening whatsoever happening in their lives. And it feels like, because it's true, we're speaking completely different languages,
Mm,
so neither one makes sense to the other. This is like
mm.
Babylon, right? Everybody's talking and nobody's making actual sense to each other.
I don't know about you, because I assume you work in this field. I haven't researched you, but I do too. So I have a community all over the world that's very large and very supportive. And even the people that aren't are at least curious, and open. So sometimes I get in other communities, like a gaming community, or I wander into a social community that is 3D, and I'm traumatized. I'm like, oh no, I get that feeling again. I'm like, oh no. And there's a lot of censure still, even with all the paranormal shows. Some of these communities are very, very judgmental still, and think you're crazy, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, I don't know what it's like for you, but for me, it's just best to, I just kind of go through my little process in my head, and
Hmm.
it's not worth it, because I don't ever feel like I need to explain myself to anyone. And I also live by the mantra that nobody needs to be convinced of anything. When you're ready, you're ready. When you're not, you're not.
Yeah, I like that. Sorry, I'm just grabbing crystals while I'm
Oh,
talking
no
to you.
worries.
It's making weird body motions. Yeah, and I mean, I know I can't convince them, but it's weird that you still get that like Salem witch trial vibe. Well, at least I do, or that religious judgment vibe. In like, I don't know. You just think people would be more open. Like I get made fun of for making organite pyramids. Like I'm like, really? Like you're like, if you think you're going to make fun of me for making a pyramid, I'm not even going to tell you the other stuff I do.
Right. And it's one of those things that for me, I just leave people where they are because, those who get it, they'll come along. Those who are curious, they'll ask questions. And those who, sometimes might be really stuck. Sometimes they're just operating out of their severe programming and they don't even realize that they're doing it, and to that degree. So it's best just to let it be, because, hey, what's the worst thing that can happen? They increase your algorithm.
That's true. Yeah, I agree. The programming is, I mean, that's the whole point is, we're memory wiped, they're memory wiped. Some of them aren't real. I always share how my family works in cloning and transfer of human consciousness. So there's a lot of beings that are, and I'm sure you've seen them too, that don't actually have any souls, or they're walk-ins with other consciousness, other ETs or human discarnates. So there's just a lot going on. And I think also there's a concentrated effort to come against us sometimes and shut us down, where our family might have been used before. Now they try to get us in situations where we don't stand in our power and we don't feel confident. So we can't affect this reality in any way.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a question about the astral realm, because being projecting out since a very, very young age, I was able to navigate a lot of the astral realm, do a lot of projection. And then I also was very traumatized through that, because when my mom found out, she would basically do things with, no matter if I was just resting or if I was projecting. If I was laying down with my eyes closed during the day,
Yeah.
that was it. So I don't take naps. I attribute this
Oh,
to I
wow.
never take naps, because the trauma was so severe for me that if I laid down, I would get anxiety, massive, massive anxiety. But before that all happened, I could come out, and now I had to gain it back. I had to work really hard at gaining that back over the years because of that anxiety level.
Mhm.
But coming out, there were different feels of the realms, right? Because there's
Oh,
different
sure.
places you can
Sure.
go. And
Yeah.
then I want to kind of go into this place of, further beyond the regular astral. When you first get into the astral, and it feels like it's kind of like life, but a little bit different. It's kind of like a
Sure.
dream. And then you go into this realm where it is just dark. It's super dark. It has this feeling of being cold, but there's no temperature gauge. It's more like a sensation of how you're processing the information. But I remembered having this dream, because I had to present it like a dream. I went into the astral. I went further beyond. That's what I used to kind of call it in my head, like something that was like further beyond
Right.
where I usually went. And then this, like, all I could describe it, I was really young. I might have been 5 years old.
Wow.
And I was trying to describe after the tornado took me out, because that's how I described it. It felt like a tornado would suck me out and then I'd go somewhere. And then it was black. Everywhere was black, but all I could hear were children crying and screaming, and just like it felt and sounded like they
Wow.
were tortured, right? And
Wow.
how I described it was this, like the feeling that I got, I felt helpless. I wanted to help so badly. I didn't know where they were. All I could hear were their screams. And it sounded to me anyway, like, I remember saying it to my mom, it was like they were really hungry and they wanted pizza really bad, and I had a whole bunch of pizzas and I didn't know where to go to give it to them. And then that was it, right? So, the 5-year-old's trying to convey this massive, complex sensation, placement and displacement at the same time, and this crying out from these beings, souls, whatever, that stuck with me for a very long time. So I wanted to kind of get your take on that.
Yeah, when I view that, definitely stumbled into a hell realm.
Yes.
So everybody thinks, or we're taught in well, I was taught, I shouldn't speak for other people in religious programming, that, there's one hell, but I've since found out there's many hell realms. And most of us have experienced or been in one or multiple ones, because a lot of people test when we run our technology for hell realm trauma, that they're still traumatized from their hell realms. And as we know, all time is now. So we have all these, pieces of or parts of us that are, still running in these other realms, unless you remove yourself from them, which is another story. But so definitely sounds like you stumbled somehow, which is, I stumbled into a lot of things like that too, because maybe you were more skilled or more deliberate than me, but I just kind of wandered. I didn't really know what I was doing. And then there were beings that guided me. And as you know, some of the beings were neutral. Some of the beings had their own agenda. Some of the beings were dark. Some of the beings were light. Some of the beings were soul family. So if I followed a being, I could really get myself in trouble, depending who it was. So yeah, I stumbled into a lot of weird realms too, but that sounds like a hell realm and horrifying for a young, even though maybe you were an older soul, still, you were a young child in this incarnation.
Yeah, I feel like I've been in and out of a lot of those over the, throughout my lifetime.
Wow.
In those, and I feel like there are night terrors, right? And I feel like those night terrors, even if I look back at the different night terrors, I can remember every single freaking detail. And that's not a dream,
No, that's not a dream. Wow.
No. So, I talk about them like they're dreams or night terrors or whatever, but they're really these experiences. And every single time I've always taken back something. And if I didn't learn what I was supposed to learn, I would go back and back and back.
Oh, wow. Fun.
I had one that lasted 5 years.
You're slow. You're like me, a slow learner.
But it was like I only saw little bits and pieces, and it expanded and expanded the longer that I had them. So here's my cat Tony. He likes to.
I love that.
He likes to get. When I have high energy people on, guess what happens? Really? Yes.
The animals come forth.
Yes, they do. So, on the topic of terrifying and horrifying, this is a great transition into, and hell realms. Well, let's talk a little bit about demons, right? Because this is something that, sorry, buddy. This is something that, it's fascinating. There's a little bit of taboo because there's so much fear around it. And I remembered saying to my mom, when she was kind of condemning me for something that I was reading about. And because it was occultic and that's of the devil and this and that. And, and I just remembered saying to her, Mom, I just want to learn about things. I want to understand, because I hear it all the time in church, and I hear it all the time when we're, saying biblical things, reading from the Bible at breakfast, dinner, and beyond, that saying the rosary every night. Come on, we did so much stuff. And, she would say these things, oh, that's demonic and you shouldn't do that. And I was gathering information. I'm a data gatherer, a data processor. And I see things from every freaking angle that I can. So my question to her was, Mom, how is it that you can learn about God and everything, but doesn't it say in the Bible, know thine enemy? And how do you know your enemy? Just like military tactics, you study your enemy, you gain intel, you do things to find out information. If you don't have the information that you need to thwart said enemy, well, you are not equipped, and you're going to be smited, basically.
True.
So
True.
let's
agree.
kind of dive into that of, demons and possession. And, could you say from your perspective,
Mhm.
what really are demons and angels? And talk a little bit about, I want to get into the whole possession thing, that it's so much more common than people would like to think.
Oh, yeah, of course. I've really changed over the years because you have to remember I'm coming out of a heavily religious background. So even though became an exorcist, I was still coming through the religious programming doors. So it took years and years for me to kind of change my view. And after talking to many of these beings, and then my ex-fiance was one of the very, very high up in the Order of Golden Dawn. So he channeled two powerful demonic beings, which actually sometimes I wonder if I was in love with the demonic beings, because what I always tell people, if you've never had, and read between the lines, a relationship with a demon, then you've never had relations, if you know what I mean, because these are old ancient beings that have memory. They know how to seduce a woman. They know how to touch a woman. They know how to talk to a woman. They're intelligent. They're powerful. They're magical. So that was my first experience that started to change. Like, do I really know what a demon is? Is a demon always going to kill me or drip blood down my walls? Or do you know what I mean? Because these were beings that were darker beings that, and now I see everything so different, because now my viewpoint is, like the Matrix, like how Reeves said, this is a documentary, the Matrix is a game. So my whole viewpoint on everything has changed. So of course that's changed my view on what demons are. So, I mean, are there dark energies? Are there dark force energies that are low frequency, that like to kill, that like to torture, that like to rape, that like, yes, of course. But I look at it kind of all time, all space, and then I look at it like this incarnation. This is a game. So if you play Call of Duty, are you going to go to prison because you shot 100,000 people the whole time you play? No, because why? It's a game. Now in here, might you go to prison if you shoot 100 people? Yes, you also might not. People get off. People blame it on, there's a lot of ways to get out of murder, right? And then we have approved killing, like war. Nobody usually goes to prison for killing people in war, right? So again, it's a game realm, and I tell people, and I get a lot of censure because it's so opposite from religion, but I really don't believe in morality here. It's a choice. So I believe that these beings that are presenting as demons are usually bird, tribe, or seraphim. Not always. They can be any kind of. They could be cetacean. They could be Andromedan. They could be just a consciousness. They could be something we've created as a thought form that's become really powerful and we fed energy into. So I believe demons take that guise because we give them that label. And then the whole angel thing, I call them angels, because again, I think they were the elves. I think a lot of them were the higher level beings that people worshipped and still worship. And just like us, here's what we forget about all beings, and you know this, but the people I work with, we're just not taught this. They have free will. They have choice. They have consciousness. So when we say angels, demons, sometimes the angels are the demons and the demons are the angels. I don't believe that angels are good and demons are bad. I believe these are beings that have their own agenda. They can change their agenda. They could start off doing evil. And as a matter of fact, the being Azazel, that we commonly call Satan, has made many deals, and he's been good and he's been bad. Because he's like us. We've been good. Of course, this is polarity terms, and we've been bad. So now I treat these beings totally different. I don't force them out with all this religious stuff like I used to. Now I have conversations. I make deals with them. People are like, you make deals with devil? I'm like, I make deals with devils all day long, all week long, all year long now. Because why come to battle and risk you being jumped, risk creating an enemy? And even an all-time, all-space enemy or time enemy, why risk it if you guys can come to an agreement? So the first question now I ask these beings, that appear as dark entity beings, is, what do you want? What do you want? And we start from there, and we work backwards, and most of the time, if I can't get beings to leave energetically with frequency or with playing the shofar or by asking, we start talking. Now, because I know who I am through all time and space. Yeah. Does it get dirty? Yeah. Do I have to banish them? Yeah. Do I have to bind them? Yeah. Do I have to send them back to the all? Yeah. Do I sometimes blow them up? Yeah. But can anyone do that? Yes. But here's the problem. Here's the disconnect between people like you and I and people that are like, oh, I can do that too. You can, but there's a difference between putting on a coat and swallowing something inside of you that permeates every part of your being. So you can know you're a powerful being. You can know you're the all. You can know you can do anything and no being has authority over you. But do they know you know? And do you really know? Do you hold it as a frequency of power in your being? And that's the difference between me at 20 saying in the name of Jesus and me now saying, you know who I am. See, I don't even ask. They know who I am. Almost every being I encounter knows me. I say, you know who I am. You know, I don't mess around. Do you want to come to the table and talk, or are we going to go to battle? Totally different.
Right. That there was so much in there. Like we could probably talk for a week on all of the stuff that you just said in there. So that's like, you know, I'm just going to project, you know, there's probably some people sitting out there going, oh my God, like, what is she saying? What is she talking about? Right? No, this is not, because there are just things that when you experience certain things and you're gifted with the knowledge of that experience,
mm-hmm.
that you can't take to somebody who knows something otherwise, right? So even, you know, in the sense that, you know, the sky is blue, right? We know, we look up, we know the sky is blue.
Right.
But is it? It's really not, right?
Right. And I love that you, just really quick, not to interrupt you, but the reason we're here is because we're living our own perception in this moment in non-time, non-space, because there's really no such thing as time, our point of attention, and we create our own reality. I'm actually teaching on this month in Elite. We're creating our own timelines, and my timelines, you know, people are like, oh, you know, the economy's going to crash. I'm like, not in my timeline. I mean, you have fun with that. Keep going with that. And people are like, why is your life so different? I'm like, because I'm living my timeline. If you're not consciously creating, you know this, then you're subjected to whatever frequency you happen to be at the moment with the collective timelines. And so when you say the sky is blue, it's the same thing. My sky might not be blue. My sky might be emerald green.
Right.
And you're not right, and I'm not wrong, and I'm not right, and you're not wrong. It's how I'm choosing to, you know, experience reality. So when I get pictures of all these beings, like I just going through my old pictures, and I get like, girl, I should send you some of my pictures. I get class AAA photography of the spirit world. And people are like, where'd you take that picture? How'd you get that picture? And I'm like, because these beings know me, and I believe beings allow us, just like the experience you shared with me. I think beings allow certain ones of us that understand them and aren't going to betray them. They allow themselves to be captured on camera for my use more than, you know, other people's use, but also as a teaching tool. And so because my reality is I can see multiple dimensions, and I'm open to communicating with, I think my life is enhanced. My daughter's like, how do you live in the middle of the mountains alone? I'm like, if you think I'm alone, you know, you have another thing coming. I have many relationships with many beings in my house, outside of my house, on my property. And some people would say you're crazy. And I'm like, in your reality, it's crazy, but in my reality, you know, it's not.
You just reminded me of a time, like, I don't even know how many years ago. This is over a decade ago, easily. And my son was with me in the garden, and, you know, we sensed this energy, and we took pictures of it, and we captured like this fairy energy on film. Beautiful. And he brought it into school.
Oh, wow. Beautiful.
And, you know, because it was actually brought it in for some kind of like project or something that they had to do. And he's like, I want to do this. I was like, full support. Right. I got a letter sent home from the teacher.
Wow.
I got a letter sent home from the teacher. Now, this is like a 6 or 7 year old kid.
Okay.
Okay. Letter sent home saying that my son called this a fairy, that he saw with his mom in the garden, and, you know, told all the kids this, and blah, blah, blah. And basically she shut him down. She told him that this was not true. She humiliated him in front of his class. At least that's his perception. And he was so upset when he came home. And that to me was like a huge disservice to so many people, because not just my son, but all those kids in that class, because you're just destroying their imagination, to say the least. To say the least. You're calming down, you're squelching out their creativity and imagination, which is everything. And so I wrote that teacher a few page letter, and also offered to have a full face discussion about this, and that she is not to, if she has a problem with something, to come to me, because do not do that to a child. And for some reason, maybe somebody needs to hear this, so I don't know why this is popping in.
Sure.
On the flip side of that, I was teaching my other son's class. I was a guest speaker that came in to my son's fifth grade class. And because my background is in biology and chemistry, I did some experiments with the kids to teach them different things. And when I was leaving, the experiments had nothing to do with the story, but when I was leaving, this girl was looking at me with these huge doe eyes, and she was just like this fascination. And when I looked at her before I walked by, she went, "You're a mermaid, aren't you?" Right. And the weirdest thing was, 2 days before that, I had this dream about being a mermaid and these two kids and like all this stuff. So that's a different story. But when she said, "You're a mermaid, aren't you?" I just went, and I got so excited that, it, to say the least, again, her imagination and her creativity, she saw something energetically around me, right? And I just went, and I looked around and I went, "Shh."
That's so cute.
And she went, "Oh." So her aura just blew up and out, and she went, "I knew it," right?
That's so
And
cute.
then
I love it.
and when I went to go leave, she was still watching me when I walked out the door. So I just winked at her and before I left.
Oh, that's so cute. Aw.
And you never know what that ripple effect has, but I bet you that had a much more positive effect than if I said, "Mermaids don't exist, you silly girl," right? How do I know?
Do you know what, kind of off subject, but do you know what do you know if you were ever cetacean, which would be what a mermaid is? Do you know if you were ever chose to be cetacean as a soul? I mean, were you a mermaid?
I think so. I've had very explicit remembrances of a few different things like that. Yeah.
I just wonder if she had gifts and was able to pick up that frequency, or was able to see like something in our records. I don't know. It's interesting that she picked that.
I think so. It was so sweet and innocent. And
But didn't you feel when you and I were growing up, though, that was like we were talking about at the beginning, that was smashed and repressed and kind of, in my case, I don't know about your case. They tried to literally beat it out of me, like that.
Wow.
That joyful scene and creativity. And even now, to me, the number one rule of this reality is, everything we can imagine is real. So no wonder that they program adults and authority figures to strip imagination from us as children, because we lose the keys to manifesting and creating our own reality young. You
Right.
said that.
You can't control someone who knows they can't be controlled.
There you go. Brilliant. Yeah.
Right. That's really it. It's the same thing, going back to that authority over the demonic presences, because, hey, if you are standing in and you know it, because they will know if
That's what
you don't know that you are, right?
Yeah.
Any amount of fear. And which kind of brings me to another thing of remembrance that I had. Before I even had my daughter, so I have 4 kids too.
Oh, weird. Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
But before I had my daughter, I had this dream that I was with my daughter, and the aliens were coming and scanning homes, and in this dream, or whatever you want to call it, they were scanning the homes, and I just remembered sitting down with her and just being at peace, and honing in, and just telling her, "Remember what I told you, joy and love, like they can't sense you if you're not fearful. So they can only sense the fears, and then you'll be like taken up, kind of thing, it was the
Right.
dream. And it's so true that nothing of that negative nature can get you if you're holding such a high vibration that sometimes it can't even see you.
Yeah, that's really true. Really, really true. And again, that goes back to people are like, aren't you afraid? Like dealing with, I'm not afraid, I'm not. There's nothing to be afraid of. Like this is the question I ask my students. I'm like, if you are the all, what are you afraid of? Because everything, every polarity is already in you. You hold everything in you. So what are you afraid of? It's you. It's
Exactly.
you, whether it's the highest light or the deepest dark. It's you. There's nothing to be afraid of.
And just like I had a conversation with one of my clients this morning was, you know,
Mm.
there's nothing to be shameful about some of the human feelings that we're allowed to have.
Oh, very nice.
Right?
Yeah. Really
You
nice.
own
Yeah.
it all, the good, the bad, because they're not necessarily good and bad. What is the scale
Exactly.
and what are you comparing it to? Everything is relative. If you're
Yep.
going to, I don't know, let's just say you punch somebody out just because you feel like it. Well, maybe, ethically, that's not so great. But if you punch somebody out because they went to go snatch your kid up, betcha
Mm.
it's going to happen. Maybe some other things might
Right.
happen, right? You're going to go
Right.
into protective mode. If you're protecting yourself, it's a completely different energy than if you're attacking someone for no good reason.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. And also we're taught to repress so many of those negative emotions, and that creates a lot of trauma, and that creates a lot of splitting, and sometimes again we create our own altars because we don't want to deal with the darker emotions that we consider shameful emotions.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we're talking about some of these things from the past and our experiences, what are some of your experiences with this, like possession or exorcism, and that made you, you know, awaken to something or understand something at a different level and then move forward with, maybe becoming that exorcist?
Mhm. um it wasn't even that I really wanted to do it, but I saw such a need and a way that you can help people, even clearing homes. People think clearing homes is so casual, but I have a story where there's a really wealthy, they're turning up my ear implant. It's so funny. They want me to tell a story. There was a really wealthy client in Ohio, and my daughter was 12, and she had gifts, like probably your children do from the time she was young. So I would take her with me to clear these houses. And it was a really weird story because really rich family, really big house, really big estate. And they had these dogs, and they went outside one night to either bring in, they had guard dogs to bring in their guard dogs or let out their guard dogs, which is really weird because that's when the intruders came in. The intruders came in, raped the wife. She lost the baby. She had a baby. She's pregnant. And ever since then, the husband's business was horrible. They had all these weird things happening in their home, noises and stuff. It was like evil entered, even though, like, obviously the people weren't still there. It was kind of like the evil that were in the people, they thought, kind of stayed. So my daughter and I went there, and it was one of the most haunted places I've ever been. Like, you could see like floating energies. It's so funny because now my dogs are all coming up while we're talking. Floating energies everywhere. There were ghosts laying around everywhere. The baby, there were dark figures over, they had a new baby. And over their current baby's bed, there were dark figures. And so my daughter at the time could see like 100% of the time, like ghost whisper. I only saw like 40% of the time. So she was really helpful to be like, okay, mom, I could feel, but she could see. And it's helpful, to be able to see. So we cleared this whole house. But what was so cool was their marriage was horrible. They were thinking about getting a divorce. His business was going down. They were worried about this baby being possessed by these dark figures. Everything stopped and cleared up, and their whole life turned around. And to be able to help like that, even though that's not we depossessed the house, the people weren't, in possession, but we depossessed this giant house. And to watch the energetic shifts is just like, makes me cry. And even yesterday, it's so funny. And I'm trying to teach this to people. We think everything's physical. We're just so programmed that everything's physical. And I had a client yesterday who bought an aura reading, and I kind of over deliver sometimes. and it was for her horse. And her horse had colic, and she's like, I don't know. Can you tell me how long this horse is going to live? And I'm like, I love horses so much. I'm like, oh, don't ask me that. Don't ask me how long your horse is going to live. And the vet had been out, and he's given up the horse for dead. And so I looked at this horse, and I'm like, of course, this horse needed this and that physically. So I recommended some things. But I thought the primary thing might be that the horse was freaking possessed and had like over 10 beings in it. And it was depressed, and it was angry, and it was bitter, all the emotions from these negative beings. So I'm like, okay, I don't even know if this is going to work. I'm not even going to tell her what I'm doing, because she didn't come to me for a depossession of her horse, So I clear the horse, which is also funny. People are like, oh, you went to the horse? I'm like, no, guys, like there is no time and space. Just so you
Right.
know, like you can do everything remotely that you can do in person. Not that I don't prefer to be in person. There's times, as you know, you would want to be in person or might prefer it. So I clear this horse, and I'm like, okay, I'm not even going to send her the before and after aura pictures, because the before was really crappy, and after it went all purple. All the 7, 8 layers that I can film went purple. And I'm like, well, I think I did something, but we'll see. So 3 hours later, she sent me this message, and she's like, oh my God, I don't even know what you did, but this horse is out in the pasture eating grass, happy as a clam. And then the next day she sent me another email, and she said, my horse is so grateful to you. Perfectly normal. Now, that sounds like a crazy story if you don't understand. To me, and maybe to you, I don't know how you feel about this, third dimension is only one dimension, and there really are no dimensions, but that's another conversation. But it's only one dimension that limited perception can see. But when you have access to all the dimensions, you realize all the dimensions play more into this dimension than this dimension. Do you know what I'm saying?
Oh, I do know what you're saying. And especially like people might be out there thinking, why would something possess a horse? Well, it's just, it's a living being, right? And something that's in spirit form that wants to experience that density. What happens? They come in, they're like, hey, I want in. And if there's some room, they're going to go in there. And then guess what? They're going to experience that. And what happens when an entity, maybe if it's more inclined to be more negative,
right,
it'll come in, and because it's not experiencing that spirit form, when you come into this density, you're lowering where you already are.
Yes.
So why wouldn't it feel depressed and like out of sorts? And then the horse is like, I don't feel myself, right?
Yeah, I'm feeling really because there's all these beings inside my body, all these weird energy. Well, the other thing that we don't know about animals, or is it commonly taught, is the same, like I'm cetacean. That was what my soul right now, cetacean. It's what I chose to be right before here. So I'm cetacean soul in a Lyrian Adamic human avatar. But what we don't understand about animals, trees, houses, whatever, is souls can possess a house as a consciousness, not embodied, just, I know you know this, or a tree, or this is how we get haunted objects, or a vase, or a couch. But they can also go into animals. So some of my animals, I have 12 dogs, are fire creation beings, living eternal souls that have chosen, or maybe gotten trapped. We can have another conversation about that. But, in a different vessel, it's just a container, whether it's this container, male, female, souls aren't male, female, it doesn't matter, or animal, or a literal container, like a ancient vase or something, like the TV shows show us. It's just a container to hold, an eternal living thing. So it's so interesting, because this horse, which I could see, it had an eternal spirit. So when this horse dies, that spirit will either go into another horse, or go into a person, or go back to the all, or wherever it wants to go,
Yeah. So this brings me to this other thought where, there's probably people out there that are going, oh my God, like everybody that I meet is probably possessed. So we also want to be like, okay, let's not freak out, because guess what? We've been living in this place for however old you are. And, just to kind of give people that idea of, okay, so what are some of the alarming things that we might want to look for that might indicate, okay, maybe you should be cautious treading forward, or, what opens somebody up to a possession?
That's a great question. I just taught like for 12 hours on this, so I'll try to be succinct. So first of all, I try not to go to stores. Like I go to the grocery store, even I get jumped. I go to Walmart. Walmart is the worst. You know, paranormal
Oh,
groups are always like, oh, should I go to this graveyard? I'm like, no, go to Walmart. Like go to Walmart at like 10 o'clock. You're going to get way more pictures and EVPs in Walmart. You are. Typically, spirits
I
don't hang
know.
around graveyards. No one goes to graveyards barely ever. So they don't want to be. They want to be where there's containers to jump. They don't want to be in a graveyard where there's birds and squirrels, you know? So that's what paranormal
Yeah, so
investigators.
I'm going to interrupt you just for a
Go
second,
ahead.
because all of you listening out there, like when you say, because I used to say this too, when you say, you know, if I go to Walmart, I feel angry, right? You know,
Yes. Or depressed. I've walked in Walmart and I instantly get depressed. No, inside.
it's
Like
like
I'm
you
like,
get
what is
shaken
wrong
off.
with me? Yeah. So I stay away from stores. I stay away from um without, you know, taking a lot of crystals or doing a lot of, you know, check of my auric field, you know, I stay away from concerts. I stay away from ball games, you know, where there's massive amounts of people, because that's where the beings go. You know, if you can see, that's where they are. At funerals, I will try everything I can not to go to a funeral. That's where they wait. They wait when people go by the viewing. They jump, jump, jump. I just watch them, how you were talking about earlier. I just watch them go in. It's like an assembly line. It's literally like funerals to me are like possession factories. And if you take pictures of people at a funeral, you can see superimposed faces all over the place. You know, it's really, I don't know, it's really easy. We found some really great tools because we run it through the, you know, quantum tech that we use, like the shofar, you know, the biblical shofar. A lot of the beings will exit a body or exit a house, and they might come back in, but they'll give you a moment to like do the work. People's fields are so holy because of what we eat. We eat poisons, we eat low frequency foods, we listen to low frequency music. We're all on our phones, you know, watching, you know, Netflix, which is, you know, Black Mirror, quantum technology. You know, this computer is. I mean, if you and I weren't doing our work, we'd be exchanging beams right now, you know? So it's portals, you know, so we're exposing ourselves constantly. And it's not like I'm telling you guys not to use tech. I mean, I do, but just be aware that this world, the subtleties of the energetic world is not how we've been taught. And so first understanding and opening yourself up, I call it dropping in their field, even this educational show, it's a beginning. To be aware is the first step. Then there's a lot of things you can do. But I like to really keep like a sacred home. I know we're running probably out of time. Sacred home and a sacred space. And we need to look at our body as a sacred home and a sacred space too. So there's a million things you can do. Essential oils, rose essential oil, frankincense essential oil, really high frequencies. You know, if you put that on, it also, Monarch, I don't know if you know who Monarch is. It's a corporation, mind control Monarch. I don't know if you've heard of Monarch Corporation, but they've done studies for years and years. And rose oil actually helps you remember who you are through all time and space. So if you want to remember your past lives, and it releases trauma. And guess what? Are roses really rare? Like, use your mind.
Mhm.
I have about 100 rose bushes. Roses aren't rare and they aren't hard to grow. So the reason rose oil is high priced isn't because roses are rare. It's because they don't want you using rose oil. So that's my best tip. And it's expensive, but it's worth it. Get a high quality rose oil, your life will change. Helps relieve depression, anxiety, helps you remember, activate psychic abilities, and releases trauma, including nighttime trauma, which a lot of you are going through and don't know.
Wow, very interesting. Thank you for that tip, because that's, and you know, it's kind of cute. My daughter started putting, you know, using a lot of rose stuff lately. So
Really? Maybe
having
she
a remembrance.
remembers that that's a good thing to use. Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you for that little, you know, something to pay attention to and also have in the toolkit. Dr. Kimberly, I could talk to you literally all day, every day. There's so many things that I'm probably going to have you back on, because I'm sure that the listeners out there are going to be going crazy for the stuff that you know. So before I could have you back on, where can people find you? Because, you know, you've got a book, you've got so many wonderful gifts and so many things. So what is it that you want to toss out there today and just tell the listeners where to find you, number one? And I will have everything in the description, guys. Go down to the description and
I'll
click the
send you
links.
a couple things too.
Yeah, so you don't have to spell anything out. I'll put
Oh, good,
everything
good,
in the
good. Okay.
links.
All right.
Okay.
I'll just mention a couple things. So secreteverything.com. And then we have a new website called, with a couple business partners of mine, called threegoddessoracles.com, where we've started we're working on card decks, oracle card decks. And so we're putting out light codes. So we have light codes for love and money and health and animal light codes. And it's phenomenal. Another tool that you guys can experiment to, help raise the frequency in your homes, your bodies, your lives, and the areas you want to work on. And then I have an Etsy store with a bunch of stuff on it, organite, and beautiful crystals and crystal towers and wands and pendants. And you can type my name in Google and I'll come up a million places. I've been around. And I'm currently going to be teaching an advanced aura class. And I do sell the quantum technology that I use, which is the Genius. So I can put a link for a 14-day trial if your listeners want that too.
All right. Thank you for that. That would be most wonderful. Is there anything that you want to toss out there, or, just say a wonderful goodbye?
Oh, no. I just want you guys to know that you can choose again. So if you don't like the way your life is in any area, you guys are powerful creators. Again, anything you can imagine is real. Start imagining, whatever area over and over, how you want that to look viscerally. And, start researching, watch more of your wonderful shows, listen and with what you resonate, and bring these tools into action in your life and shift your vibration higher. Because my life is exactly the way I've created it, but so is yours. And you can change that.
Amen to that, for sure, because that is the truth. You are a creator. You are creating whatever it is that you're coded with. So if you want to change your code, let's do something about it. All you have to do is take action. Go find whatever fits the bill. Okay. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Another Magic and Miracles podcast. We'll see you next time. Thank you for joining us for the Magic and Miracles podcast, where everyday folks like you share their life-changing stories. The world wants to hear your extraordinary story. So is it about time you tell it? You might just end up being someone else's miracle waiting to happen. If you would like to be a guest on the show, please submit your application for consideration. If you would like to nominate a guest or submit a personal story to be read on the show, please contact us via email. In the meantime, enjoy the journey. You never know when you will experience a miracle that will change your life forever, or if you will become someone else's real-life angel. Goodbye for now, and see you on the next episode of Magic and Miracles, the podcast with wings. Thank you for joining us for the Magic and Miracles podcast, where everyday folks like you share their life-changing stories. The world wants to hear your extraordinary story. So is it about time you tell it? You might just end up being someone else's miracle waiting to happen. If you would like to be a guest on the show, please submit your application for consideration. If you would like to nominate a guest or submit a personal story to be read on the show, please contact us via email. In the meantime, enjoy the journey. You never know when you will experience a miracle that will change your life forever, or if you will become someone else's real-life angel. Goodbye for now, and see you on the next episode of Magic and Miracles, the podcast with wings.